Nobody here. All right. We'll start with these. You are, I think. Oh yeah, it's prom weekend. Probably a lot of people out this week. Hey, what's up, people? Welcome to the Saturday staining. Just gonna tongue oil up some Uwara first. Got some more of these oak pocket Uwara. I had some blanks for those, so figured I'd go ahead and make the rest of them. If you got any questions, shove them in the chat there, and I will gladly answer them. We got some Uwara to tongue oil. I got a custom primitive wood dagger to tongue oil and some Viking wasters, Viking sword wasters, and we got a bunch of stakes to oh my god, I can't read that. It's too small. But welcome, irashaimase. All right, I'm gonna put this in the dry room. Be right back. Welcome everybody to Saturday Staining. If you got any questions, put them in the chat. Got a bunch of stuff to tongue oil. And then we're gonna stain some steaks. These pocket Uwara, gotta get these knocked out first. Be right back. Oh my god, I'm so sore this week, you guys. I think I got a personal trainer because my back and stuff has been giving me issues since I stopped training. So I started training again these last couple weeks. And my trainer went all in on legs this week, and god, my legs are killing me. What is happening? Hey, what's up? Welcome. What is happening is I am tongue oiling some Uwara. These are Uwara. You put a cord through these holes right here, and it becomes a self-defense weapon. I've got some other stuff I'm going to be tongue oiling. I've got a custom primitive dagger, some Viking sword wasters, and then we're going to stain a bunch of steaks. It's non-stop excitement over here, people. It's just... All right, I'll be right back. And I also made another of the 8-inch Uwara. One thing about Uwara you got to watch out for is a lot of shops, they forget to treat the holes in the Uwara, which leaves you with a spot for decay and bugs to get in, and also leaves a weak point. So always make sure you oil the holes. I know that sounds dirty, but it's not how I meant to say it. It's just I can't think of a better way to say it. I feel like half the time my lives end up being like unintentionally dirty. I don't mean for them to be. I swear. Welcome everybody to Saturday Staining. If you have any questions about what I'm doing or what's going on here in the shop, feel free to drop them in the chat. We're just tongue oiling up some Uwara here. And then we're gonna move on to a custom dagger. I think this is the last of the Uwara. All right, let me get a new cloth. So this dagger I made is made out of white ash, which I got lucky with one of my vendors recently and was able to get my hands on a bunch of white ash, which is not easy to get in the US these days because there's a beetle that got over here. I want to say from Asia. It came over and really messed up the ash forests here in the US. But he was in an area where they had a storm and some ash trees came down and they were able to harvest the wood. So this is a custom primitive dagger, sanded up to 1,000 grit. When I put the tung oil on it, should give it a glass smooth finish. There we go. I got the ash dagger done. I also sell similar items on the shop. I haven't made any of the functional primitive daggers in a while. I usually make more extreme tapered ones. They'll seem to be more popular with people because they kind of look more like vampire steaks. But I may make some before the holidays to put up on the shop. I do like how it looks with the white ash, so I might actually make a couple more of the white ash primitive daggers. All right, let me go put this bad boy in the dry room. All right. And now I've got a couple of Viking sword wasters, one of which I'm going to sell. The other one has now become mine because this happens sometimes, I was shaping it and some voids popped up in the wood that were deep in the wood. I will not sell wasters or boken that have voids in the wood because I guarantee all of my wasters and boken. So, but this is the one that doesn't have the voids in it. And all of my wasters in the shop are guaranteed not to break when they shouldn't break. If you buy one, you go to use it, and it breaks on you, I will replace it. Unless you use it in a way that it's any waster would break. Like if you go smacking it against a telephone pole, it will eventually break. Any waster will break. But if you're using it in sparring or on a properly padded impact dummy and it breaks on you, I will replace it, no charge. You don't have to return the old one. You just let me know that it broke, tell me how it broke, and I will replace it for you. I tend to not really ask a lot of questions because it doesn't happen very often. I've only had that happen once in the last few years. So if you're looking for a waster or a boken that you know is going to last you a long time and that you won't have to worry about being out the money if it breaks, my shop is a great option for that. All right, let me go put this bad boy up. This other one over here, though, I don't know what was going on with the blank that I used, but when I started shaping it out, it looked fine, and then when I started sanding it, some voids opened up right here, and so yeah, and over here higher up the blade there's another one. Not sure why, but that's okay. I actually was needing to make a practice sword for myself anyway, so this will just be my practice sword now. Since I started training recently, started training again, went back to training, I definitely needed a practice sword because I can't find mine. I don't know what I did to it. I've been trying to find it for like 3 weeks now. I have no idea what I did with that sword, but it is missing. So this will be my practice sword now. Welcome everybody. If you got any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. Help me be a little less bored this morning. It's really the main reason I go live while I do this. This is the boring part of what I do outside of shaping and sanding. I would honestly just run live while I'm working and making this stuff, but it is insanely loud in the shop, and I just don't think it would be that interesting, and I wouldn't really be able to interact with the chat. So, all right, I go put this one up. Anything you see on this live, you can find it at warriorwoodandprops.com. The Viking swords won't be listed until tomorrow because I sold out. I sold out of them this last week, and so they won't list. I won't have that listing up until tomorrow. Whew. All right. So I think that's all the tung oil stuff. Yep. Oh yeah, I gotta wipe this out. You know. Sending me a huge hi. Hi, Angela. Welcome. All right. And if you want to see what all this stuff looks like when it's done, I go live on Sunday mornings at 7:30. Around 7:30 in the morning. I know that's an ungodly hour. Probably why very few people come to see it. But I do all my finishing work Sunday morning, and I go live for that. That's usually longer than this. My Saturday staining lives are usually like 30 minutes to an hour tops. My Sunday lives tend to go for about an hour to 2 hours. I have a ton of stuff to cord wrap this week, so yeah, it's probably gonna be a long one this week. Be right back. We go put all this stuff away, and then we'll get to the staining. Oh my gosh. Why does everything hurt? It's because I'm old. All right, so I got some poplar steaks. And I got some of these, the cheapy, got the 3 steak set here and a little 2 steak set. Oh, excuse me. I'm going to be staining this morning. But I got to put on some new gloves. You don't want to get tung oil on stuff that I'm staining and vice versa. So I got to put on some clean gloves. If you got any questions for me, drop those in the chat, and I will gladly answer them. And don't worry, I know that this can look intimidating, but I promise we're not doing any prostate exams. I don't even know if Tony's in here, but Tony's always worried about the prostate exams. What happened to the broom handles? The broom handles are getting turned into steaks. That's what happened to the broom handles. So what Jay's talking about, so I ordered some bow staff blanks from a vendor, and it was a really good deal. Like, it was super, like, amazing good deal. They said they were made out of hard maple, and what they sent me instead was a pack of, like, it was supposed to be like a dozen or so bow staff blanks, and instead what I got was a pack of broomsticks. And so those broomsticks are now becoming these steak sets because I have nothing else I can do with them. I'm not going to make bow staffs out of these because that is not maple. I don't know what it is. I'm pretty sure it's pine. But pine, not a great wood for bow staffs. So while a broomstick itself might be a good substitute in a clinch for a bow staff, I would not be making my bow staffs out of pine. So the broomsticks are getting turned into vampire stake sets. Because I don't want to waste them. And I wanted to return them, but they came from China. Go figure. And nothing against China, but sometimes when you order from vendors on Amazon that are in China, it's kind of a crapshoot what you're going to get. And they were supposed to be hard maple blanks, and instead they were just cheap broomsticks. And when I tried to actually complain to Amazon about it, Amazon said it was not like the vendor's fault. I'm not sure how that wasn't the vendor's fault. The vendor offered to let me return them, but I had to pay for the shipping back to China. So, like, you know, it was going to cost me more to ship them back than it actually cost me to buy them. So I just kept them, figured I could turn them into something. And I find that any wood can look nice if you just know what to do with it. And pine, you know, it's not a horrible wood. It takes stain well, and it looks good as a prop wood for stuff like stakes. And if I need to do like a mock-up or something like that for a stick, I can use the pine to do the mock-up, so I don't have to use nice wood for it. You know, I got a use for it, but good gracious. It's definitely not hard maple, not what I paid for. But yeah, it's one thing you gotta learn, you know. If you find something online and it's too good to be true, it probably is too good to be true. What is tung oil and why is it the chosen oil for? Okay, so tung oil, it actually is derived from a nut. Tung oil is a penetrating oil. It actually dries hard when it finally dries. Tung oil is used a lot for weapons because of the fact that it penetrates the wood, it strengthens the wood, reinforces it, and unlike some of the other penetrating oils, tung oil doesn't go rancid, which some different kinds of like oils that are used for wood that oxidize and dry hard like tung oil does, a lot of them have a tendency to just, they go rancid over time. It's a weird thing, but tung oil doesn't. So I tend to use tung oil for weapons because it makes them stronger. Oddly enough, another thing I use outside of tung oil is mineral oil. A lot of times, like Boo Hurt and Armored Combat guys prefer mineral oil to tung oil. It's less permanent. You have to reapply the mineral oil over time, but it makes the wood softer on the edges. So when you're smacking your wasters or bowkin together, the edge tends to dent instead of crack, and it tends to last longer that way. So if you're planning to do a lot of like impact type of practice with a weapon, sometimes mineral oil is preferred, especially when you're fighting guys in armor, because you hit somebody in the armor. There are sharp edges on armor and things like that that could crack the wood. It'd be better they just would prefer the wood to dent. So, but that's why I use tung oil. It strengthens the wood, and it's very reliable. It's one of the few things in the world that I've found that does what it says it does. You know, I find there are very few things in this world that do exactly what they claim they'd be able to do. You know, duct tape being one of them. Duct tape, super glue, that kind of stuff does exactly what it's supposed to do. And tung oil is one of those things. It does exactly what it's supposed to do. It's just seal and strengthen the wood, and it gives a nice, pretty finish. But I don't usually tongue oil the stuff that I stain unless it's requested. I do. I've done some custom bow stabs and stuff like that where they wanted it stained, and so I will put the stain on, and I have to let the stain sit for like 3 days because it has to be completely cured. And then once that happens, I can put the tongue oil on it. Hey, welcome, Abdius. All right, I'm gonna put this up. So, but yeah, matter of fact, probably in a week or two, I need to put these together. I'm gonna make a few long form tutorials on how to upgrade a cheap bowkin, because that's one thing I think a lot of people are disappointed by. You know, they'll find a bowkin on eBay or Amazon, and it's, you know, it's $20, which is a nice price. But a lot of times you go to use those bowkin and they just snap on you because, you know, they were $20. They're cheap. And, but there are ways to make even a cheap bowkin last a little bit longer. So I'm going to do a long tutorial video on how to take a cheap bowkin and make it stronger. When I was a kid, when I first started doing kobudo and stuff, my family didn't have a lot of money, so a lot of times whatever I could get was, you know, whatever I could get, and it was usually pretty cheap. And so luckily I had a sensei who was very nice, and he showed me a lot of ways to kind of make them a little less cheap by just treating the wood a little nicer than how it was treated by the manufacturer. And boy, I hope this works, because I'll tell you what, guys, I bought the cheapest bowkin I could find to do this tutorial. It was like an $18 bowkin. So I'm just hoping that whenever I sand off the lacquer, it's not just like completely full of wood filler. Because it was supposed to be a natural stain bowkin that I bought, and when they sent it to me, it was not a natural stain. It is straight up painted. So sometimes people don't realize when you go buy like a machined bowkin, if it has anything on it that's not just natural wood, you should always be wary of that. Like if you're looking at a bowkin that's been painted or has dragons carved into the side or has a handle wrap on it, anything like that, a lot of times what happens when they make those bowkin is, you know, it's just a lot of blanks that get dumped into a machine. The machine cuts them and kicks them out the other side. And there are people that look at them, and the ones that are in good shape go in the sell pile, and the ones that are not in good shape go in the modify pile. And the modify pile goes and gets painted. They put wood filler in it. They paint it. They carve dragons into the sides of them. They put handles on them. Then they turn around and try to sell it to you for $10 more because it's supposed to be nicer, when in fact the wood in it's garbage. Yeah, if you can't see the wood on a bowkin, don't buy it. You have no idea what's under that paint or stain. And a lot of times it's just wood filler. I am going to have to cord wrap all of these steaks tomorrow. My hands are going to be cramping in the morning. But if you want to watch my hands cramp, come join me and help me be less bored tomorrow morning around 7:30. I'll be on for a couple hours doing my finishing work, which is mostly cord wrapping. But it's usually a good time. If you got any questions about anything, feel free to drop them in the chat. I will happily answer them. All right. I know it's super exciting watching a pudgy, gray-bearded, middle-aged man stain wood. But I appreciate you guys being here. All right, I got two more. Two more steaks to stain up. This will be a 2-steak set. I haven't decided what I'm going to do with these two yet. I don't know if I'm going to sell them as a set or just auction them on eBay. I like to have at least a few auctions going on eBay. You know, usually it's for stuff that's either just doesn't quite fit my quality standards. I'll auction it off on eBay just because I hate to see stuff sit, and you know, if it sells for a penny and they just pay for the shipping, I'm cool with it. Woot woot. We got one more. All right, everybody, if you got questions, now is the time to get them in that chat, because this is my last steak of the day. And then you guys get to watch me clean up my work area, which is, like I said, I promised nonstop excitement in the description. So, yeah, I know, this beard's been going gray. I get a little, you know, it's been gradually going gray for about the last 10 years, I think. But it's a little unruly right now. I need to, probably tonight today when I go home and take a shower, I'll probably trim it up, because I like having a beard, but when it gets too long, I'm not a fan. It just starts bugging me when it gets too long, so I usually trim it up once or twice a month. All right, put this one up. Whew. Oops, I forgot my hammer. Hammer! Tank Tolman would be very upset with me right now. Forgot the hammer. Have I considered doing tutorials on how to effectively use the weapons? I mean, there are a lot of people out there that are way better at that than I am. I know how to use the weapons that I make. I don't know that I'm the best person in the world to be teaching other people how to use them. But, you know, I probably could do... I might do some Yawara tutorials, since I do so many Yawaras. What I think would be fun would be to do a video on how to properly stake a vampire, honestly. I think that would be fun, because you don't really see that very often. And believe it or not, there are some rules when it comes to staking vampires that a lot of people ignore for some reason. It drives me nuts. Like, number one, it's a part of the lore that everyone ignores, is you should never stake a vampire with evergreen wood. And for some reason, movies have never picked that up, and I don't know why. I think it's a cool detail that is in older, like, Romanian lore, that you shouldn't stake vampires with evergreen wood, because it's considered an immortal wood because it's evergreen. And so the theory behind it is that if you stake an immortal being with an immortal wood, you won't kill it. And in some of the lore, it even claims you could make it stronger, which you don't want to do. And like other stuff, like if your stake is not, the stabbing part of your stake is not at least 6 inches long, it's not long enough to stake a vampire. You need at least 6 inches of clearance to get from the front of the chest to the actual heart. So if you have a stake that doesn't have at least 6 inches of stabbing tip on it, then all you're going to do is piss off the vampire. So, you know, make sure your steak is long enough. And there's just little things like that. And also, the heart is not on the left side of the chest. Everyone always thinks it's on the left side of the chest. The heart is actually closer to the center of the chest and slightly to the left. So if you're stabbing over here, you're going to miss the heart. You want to stab closer to like right here. Oh, well, I got stain on my hands. Hang on. But yeah, I think it'd be fun to do, like, I actually did a book year before last for DK Publishing. I did a book on supernatural creatures, and I actually was talking to a lady for a little while that kind of looks at new shows to pitch, and we had this idea of doing a show where, you know, we have craftsmen come in and make weapons to kill a specific monster, and then we would have like a mock-up monster where we test the weapons and stuff. It didn't pan out, but I always thought that would be a cool idea. But yeah, I mean, I think it would be cool to have like tutorials on, if you're going to kill a vampire, here's how you kill a vampire. Because everybody just kind of goes with what the movies say, and, you know, there's a lot of interesting stuff in the lore that gets ignored. That's true with werewolves too. Werewolves lore is way weirder. Like, there's some lore, like, you know, the whole, like, the only way to kill a werewolf is a silver bullet. While I love the Monster Squad, not exactly true. I mean, there's the only way to kill a werewolf, but it's not the only way to stop a werewolf. You can also stop a werewolf, according to old lore, by throwing an iron bar over its head. So, if you have an iron bar handy, throw it over the werewolf's head, and it will return to human form, according to some lore. That probably got mixed in from fairy lore, because iron tends to work on fairies or fae folk, along with silver and certain other metals. All right, almost done for the day, everybody. So if you got questions, shove them in that chat. Like, one of the big ones is that with vampires, especially, that people have kind of been debating, especially over the last 20 years or so, is the whole cross thing, you know, because crosses were a big vampire deterrent back in the day, with the concept that, you know, they were evil, and so the power of Christ compels you, that whole thing. But now we live in a less religiously superstitious world, so the idea of crosses, you know, has kind of been changed to, like, if the vampire believes in Christianity, then they're afraid of crosses, and if they weren't a Christian, or before they became a vampire, then they're not. Did I just say it 3 times like Beetlejuice? Saying a werewolf's true name. Yeah, there is. That lore actually applies to a lot of supernatural creatures. That if you can learn the true name of the creature, you can basically like neutralize its powers by doing that. That exists in like fairy lore, and actually a lot of fairy lore. I mean, yeah, I think a lot of fae lore somehow got mixed in with werewolf lore. I'm not sure how that happened. I'm sure there's a timeline I could follow to figure that out. But yeah, the Rumpelstiltskin effect. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's a perfect example of the Rumpelstiltskin effect. That's a weird story too, Rumpelstiltskin. But anyway, if anyone's got any more questions, stick them in the chat. I'll stick around for a couple more minutes, and then I'm gonna call it a day. Go home, take a shower, trim my unruly beard, and try to enjoy the rest of my Saturday. Is it German because it was a bedtime story? Oh, yeah. Rumpelstiltskin's definitely German. I mean, most fairy tales in general are European, but at the same time, like, you have different versions, and a lot of times it drives me nuts. Like, I'll go like to a Comic-Con, I do lectures on fairy tales at Comic-Con and the old school ones, and I'll tell it, and the person will be like, well, that's not the version that I heard. Well, yeah, that's not surprising. You have to remember that what we call fairy tales, a lot of people think the Brothers Grimm created fairy tales. They did not. They went around and like interviewed everybody's meemaw and like got them to tell them stories and wrote them down. They didn't create those stories. They just interviewed people and had them tell the stories, and then they wrote them down. And one of the hard things they ran into is there are a lot of different versions, because fairy tales probably existed for thousands of years being told verbally before anybody bothered writing them down. So you get different versions over time, and also depends on the culture. Like, for example, Little Red Riding Hood is actually the French version of that story. The German version of that story is Little Red Cap, because they didn't wear riding hoods in Germany. That was a French thing. So, you get different versions of stories based on where you go. So you have a German version of Little Red Riding Hood. You have a French version of Little Red Riding Hood. You have German versions of Sleeping Beauty. You have a French version of Sleeping Beauty. You have different versions of different fairy tales depending on what. But the Germans and the French were the big ones. I'm sure there are fairy tales from all over Europe, but the Germans and the French, I think they were just the best at writing them down. But I think the reason most people know the German versions of fairy tales is due to the Brothers Grimm, because they wrote so many of them down. Do I work during the night? No, I sleep during the night. I do not work during the night. No, I sleep. I am so boring. I am in bed at like 7:30. I'm not sleeping at 7:30, but I'm in bed about 7:30 every night. I kick on some Mystery Science Theater. I take my sleep stuff, and then once that kicks in, I go to sleep. I'm usually asleep by about 9:30 or 10. So, but no, I don't. I don't work at night unless I have to. Night is for sleeping for me, because I'm old and I need sleep. All right. Anybody else got any more questions? Let me know. I just got one last thing to put away, and then I am done for today. Let me go hang some stuff up. I'll be right back. If you got any last minute questions, shove them in that chat, and I will answer them. Oh, sorry, I gotta hang up all my protective gear here. I will be right back. Like I said, if you got any last minute questions, stick them in that chat, and I will gladly answer them. Later, Jason. Take care. All right, you guys. Well, thank you for joining me for Saturday Staining. Like I said, I will be live tomorrow morning at 7:30 for finishing work live on Sunday. My shop will be closed from June 20th until about July 24th or 25th. I'm going to be in Texas. I might have a limited inventory up, mostly like steaks and Yawara, but for the most part, I'm pretty sure the shop's going to be closed during that time. So I will stop taking custom orders on June 10th. So if you have a custom order that you need, please get it to me by June 10th, so I can get it done before I leave on June 21st. But the shop will close down on June 20th, and anything that's still up on the shop, if anything, will just be a limited inventory of small stuff like Yawara and steak, stuff that I can take with me to Texas. I'm going to be in Texas for about a month. I go to Texas every year in the summer. My kids live in Texas, and so it's nice to be able to go. I work from home, so the only thing I can't do from home is the shop. So, but I go to Texas and spend a month with my kids so that I can see them more. So anyway, but I will be back July 24th, and we will be moving right into spooky season after that, which is what I'm doing. So anyway, that's it, people. And if no one has any more questions, I'm going to call it a day. Thank you as always for hanging out with me. And if you have time, I look forward to seeing you tomorrow morning. Bye, everybody.